Amazon Cognito offers authentication and authorization features for your web and mobile application. Authentication is who the user is. It's the part where the application tries to figure out who you are. Authorization, on the other hand, is what the user has access to. As in, certain users might only have access to specific AWS resources in your environment. To put it briefly, Cognito safeguards our web applications. But why do we need Cognito? We can just manually safeguard our websites too, right? If you try to manually authenticate users to your website, you'll have to manage a lot of things, including storing all the user credentials, encrypting the password, securing the communication lines, implementing MFA or multi-factor authentication, account recovery, password resets, and so much more. Worst part, this data is going to pile up eventually, and soon you will be buried in a pool of unmanaged data. But don't worry, because this is where Amazon Cognito, or the gatekeeper, comes to your rescue. But before I tell you more about Cognito, make sure to subscribe to Intellipaat's YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to never miss out on any updates from us. Also, if you want to learn more about AWS from industry experts, check out Intellipaat's AWS Solutions Architect course from the link in the description down below. So, this right here is going to be our agenda for this video. So let's start things off with what is Amazon Cognito. Cognito can quite easily solve our earlier dilemma by offering security features to protect user data. Passwords are securely hashed using strong algorithms to prevent unauthorized access. User data is encrypted and transmitted securely over the internet using SSL TLS protocol. SSL or Secure Sockets Layer and TLS or Transport Layer Security provide secure communication over a computer network, usually between a client and a server. For now, all you need to know is we need SSL and TLS to ensure that our sensitive information such as passwords, financial transactions, and personal data remain protected from various cyber attacks. Coming back to our topic, to provide another layer of security, Cognito also supports MFA, account recovery, and password resets. If you have explored the user authentication area before on AWS, you must have come across IAM or Identity and Access Management at least once. IAM is also a way of authenticating users. So, why do we need Cognito? This brings us to our next topic. Cognito handles the user-related aspects of our application, such as user registration, sign-in, sign-up, MFA, etc., and the management of users, whereas IAM is used for setting and managing permissions for various AWS resources, ensuring your application's backend components have the necessary permissions to function securely. In a nutshell, you should choose Cognito if your application primarily deals with user authentication and management, as Cognito naturally becomes a better choice due to its built-in features for user management and integration with various identity providers. Whereas, you should choose IAM when you need to manage permissions for AWS resources and services, especially in scenarios involving internal users such as employees and administrators. Now, let's understand some of the key components of Amazon Cognito, namely user pool, identity pool, and sync. User pool is a user directory. Think of it as a register that contains all the user credentials such as the username, password, etc. User pool manages user registration, sign in, sign out, verifying email or phone numbers by sending verification code, handling forgotten passwords, and changing existing passwords. Additionally, it also secures and encrypts passwords, supports features like MFA and CAPTCHA, and provides password policies and token-based authentication. Password policies refer to the set of rules that a user must follow while creating or updating a password, such as the minimum length, use of alphanumeric characters, requiring lowercase or uppercase or numbers, etc. User pool also supports identity federation, meaning you can combine user pool with third-party authentication services such as Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple. Identity pools in AWS Cognito allows you to grant your users access to other AWS services by providing temporary AWS credentials. Consider a situation where you're getting authenticated from one of the identity providers. Once you get authenticated, you will get an authorization token from the provider, which you can send to the Cognito identity pool. The identity pool will verify the token with the identity provider and issue you temporary AWS credentials, which you can use to access the desired resources. Then comes sync, which allows you to sync user data across multiple devices. Alright, now that you have a basic understanding of Amazon Cognito, let's move on to the hands-on part. For this hands-on demonstration, we'll be creating a React web application and we are going to use Amplify. Amplify allows you to build and manage web applications with backend services such as storage and authentication. We will be using Amplify to integrate Cognito into our website. There are some more of Cognito's features that we'll be discussing during the hands-on. So with that, let's jump right in. Okay, now let's proceed on to the hands-on part. So for this hands-on part, we'll be creating a React app inside of which we're going to integrate Amplify and Cognito. So to start with, I've given the link to my GitHub account in the description. You can go there, click on commands for React. We're going to run all of these commands in our React file. Let's create a folder, React Cognito. Create a new terminal here. You can go to terminal, new terminal. We don't need PowerShell, we need command prompt. Alright, now let's run our codes one by one. We just need to copy from here and paste the code over there. Alright, so right now, let me just tell you, this is going to take some time to install. Meanwhile, let me tell you what we are doing right here. We are basically importing all the tools that we need from the Amplify. Amplify is basically a service that AWS provides, which offers you tools so that you can create your websites, your full stack websites. It offers you tools so that you can facilitate backend with your storage and authentication services. So where you can integrate it with S3 buckets and such for storage. But in our case, we need authentication, so we'll be integrating it with Cognito. It provides us tools so that it integrates directly with Cognito. Okay. Now let's just configure our Amplify. It's going to open my AWS account. Okay, now I have already logged in so that I don't have to log in again. If you haven't, you can go right here and log in. But now that you're here on the console, check one thing, that it's your region. For me, it's US East 1 because it's going to ask you right now. Let's click enter. There it is, US East 1. Okay, now it's going to ask us to create a user in the IAM console. And it's also providing you the documentation as to how to create the user. Okay, so let's just create. I'm going to call it React user. Okay, let's just call it something else. Cognito user. Let's just attach policies directly. And if you come to the documentation also, you can see it here, the administrator/access Amplify. And it's right here. If you can't find it, just go and search for Amplify and there it is. Click on next. Okay, create user. And now if we go to this Cognito user, security credentials, we need access keys, because if you come back to VS Code, you will enter and you need access keys. Where will you get access keys? You need to create them. Command line interface, because we are using VS Code. Click on next. We don't need a description. Access key, here it is. Copy, paste. Secret access key, there it is. Again, copy, paste. Profile name, let's just go with Cognito user itself. Okay, so user is set up. Now we can safely close this. We don't need that. Now we can create our React app. I'm going to go with the standard my app. Let's just wait for it to get installed. Okay, so now that our React app is installed, let's just navigate to our folder, my app. Now we need to initialize Amplify. Copy that command, paste it here. Name, let's just go with my app. Yes, the information is correct. AWS profile, Cognito user. So no, let's just go with no, it's a small project. Okay. Now let's just add Cognito. This Amplify add auth is basically Amplify add authentication. Okay, so the social provider is basically your this Google or Facebook or Amazon. If you want to integrate third party, like if you want to sign in using a third party website like Google or something, if you want to authenticate through there, then you can go with a social provider. But right now, let's just create a very simple project. But in the same project itself, I will show you how to do it. But for now, let's just make it quite simple. Default configuration. Let's just take email. Yes, we're done. Okay. Now the next steps is amplify push. Alright, so this step is basically, you know, like you told Amplify your requirements that, okay, I don't want a social provider, I want the default configurations. So there are certain default configurations that you can see when you create a user pool from the UI itself. So it's gonna just like whatever, okay, let's just click on yes. So whatever configurations that you gave right here, the default configurations, now Amplify is going to go to the AWS cloud and it's going to develop all those applications for you. Okay, so now let's install all the UI components that we're going to need for React. Now before we move on to the next command, which is npm start, we need to make a few changes in our code, because right now in React it's going to just run the default code. We don't want that. We need the code for our Cognito. So that's why we need to modify this code. If you see here this authenticator, this is going to provide you with a default template for your code, so that it's going to provide you the default login sign up page, so you don't have to do anything about it. But for the home page you need, so that's why you need to copy the app.css as well. Okay. Now that everything's set, let's just start our app. Okay. Yeah, so here we are. We need to create an account. This is the default page which has been provided to us by Cognito itself using Amplify. Now let's just navigate to our AWS dashboard again. There's the pool that we just created, and right here you can see that there are no users created yet. That's because we haven't created any. So let's just create one. Now it's going to send you a verification code to the email ID that you provided. You need to go to your mail and take that from there. Put the confirmation code, click on confirm. And we are logged in. Now if you come back here, reload this, there is our user that we just created. Okay, now this was a very simple way of doing these things. But now if you want to integrate the third-party providers such as Google, Facebook or Amazon, that is going to be a bit more complicated than this. So if you want to tag along, let's go. To start with, we need to go to Google Cloud Service Providers. Now, why do we need to go here? Because if you come back, sign in experience, this identity provider, click on that. Here you can see all of these identity providers that you can add in your project. We're going to choose Google for this demonstration. Here we need client ID, client secret. We need to set up Google Federation with this pool. Now, if you want more information, there's a documentation regarding this. Amplify itself provided it. This is a documentation. I'll leave the link in the description down below. So if you want to, you can go and have a read through it, but I'm just going to show you how to do it. So Firstly, you need to create a project. You need to navigate to API and services. Right here, you need to go to OAuth consent screen. External, create, app name, okay, yeah, example app, supported email. I'm going to copy that because we need to use it down below as well. Authorized domain, you need to give something like Amazon Cognito.com. Email address, save and continue. We don't need any scopes here. No test users. Okay, back to dashboard. Okay, now let's just go to credentials. Now we need to create our client ID. Let's create it, OAuth client ID. Our application is a web application. Let's just again go with example app. Authorized JavaScript origins we'll add later. And this is going to give you with your client ID and your client secret. Copy that, put it here. We have the client secret as well. Now this particular part you need to be very, very aware of. So in the code that I am giving you, there are 3 scopes that are mentioned: profile, email, and OpenID. This is very crucial because if any of this is wrong, it won't work. So please be very sure that profile, email, OpenID, keep that in your mind. Let's just give email right here. Add entity provider. Okay. Now before this we didn't give a domain, so let's just create a domain first. Create a Cognito domain. I'm just going to call this Intellipaat Cognito. Let's just create, okay, it's already there, 2. Okay, this is there, cog, okay, this is there, okay. So that's our domain name. Now let's just add the callback. Okay, callback URL you need to take from here, your local host. Paste it here. Sign out also you need this. This is redirecting basically. Identity providers, let's just select both. OAuth. Okay, what is OAuth 2.2? Now OAuth is basically a protocol which masks your credentials. It's like you're providing your credentials to it. It masks it so that the websites who are accessing your credentials, they don't see your actual credentials. Like when you're logging in, they don't see your actual credentials. It masks it. So there are 2 types of it: authorized and implicit. So the basic difference between both of them is that in authorized, in implicit one, the access token, it's visible inside the IP address itself, but if you take authorized one, then it's like it masks the access tokens. So that's why let's just go with authorization code grant. OpenID, scopes, let's just leave it there. Save changes. If you scroll down, no, you need to come back first. There are 2, right? So we need to configure the same for both of them. Again, same process. Callback, sign out, identity, Cognito and Google, auth is authorization, OIDC, OpenID. Okay, save changes. Now I believe, alright, but now there's a problem. If you directly click on continue with Google, it is going to show you blocked. Why? Because if you remember, I told you we will fill these authorized JavaScript origins form later, which we haven't filled till now. So let's just go right around and fill it. So for that we need our domain name. Let's just go and get our domain name first. There's our domain name, copy it from there. Authorized JavaScript, let's add first. Okay. For this one, you need to make sure that OAuth 2/IDP response, you need to add this. Click on save. Okay, saved. Let's just go back. Let me just select any one of them. Okay, we are redirected back here. We're not logging in because if you remember in our code, we have not yet provided that, okay, when the Google is like when you authenticate from Google, you can go to the login page. We haven't provided it in the VS Code yet. That's why we're getting redirected to our localhost page only. But if you go back in here, you can see the email has not been verified yet because it's not integrated in our code yet, but it is an external provider, so let it be. Now let's just add it to our code as well so that it can be reflected on both the places. Okay, so for the code again, you need to modify it, and again I've provided the code in the GitHub repository itself. You can copy it from there and add it here. And then there's another file, you can locate it, AWS exports.js. In here, there are a few modifications that you need to make in this OAuth client. Okay. Now the domain name we just copied, so I believe it should be there somewhere. I'll just go and take it from there. Okay, so the domain name, we know where to get it from. There's the domain name. Paste it here. Make sure the HTTPS you don't need it there. The OpenID profile email, make very sure it's there. Your redirect, we need localhost here as well. Okay, your client ID, we need to take it from Google. There it is. Still some error in our code. Okay, there's another one. You need to also change the app.js code from this federated ID. Okay, it's showing here, but if you click on that, it's not going to take you there because there are multiple problems. Right here, we didn't add localhost. So let's just add that first. Here we specified for Cognito, but we didn't specify for localhost. That's why we're getting the error. And again, you need this OAuth 2 IDP response. Okay, click on save. Let me start it again. Let's now try to sign in with Google. Still not working. Invalid scope again. Let's just go and double check if our scope is correctly written here or not. Email and profile. Let me just double check that again. Email and profile. Okay, yeah. Save changes. Okay. Now if you click on sign in, let me just take one of my accounts. And we are logged in. Okay, let's just log out. And if you come back here in the users, you can see the external provider that we just Google, like we use Google to sign in. You can see it right here. So that's about it. If you have made it this far, congratulations. You now have the required knowledge about Amazon Cognito. Once again, if you found this video helpful, consider liking this video and subscribing to Intellipaat's YouTube channel. That's all for the day. Thank you and see you next time.